We've got to find new ways to get out in the communities. You say, well, okay, Mike, how do we do that? Well, let me talk to you about three opportunities tonight, three opportunities to connect with the community. I've got some guests here that are here tonight, and I want them to come up here, and I want them to share with you a little bit about what can happen. The first one is Nat West. Nat, would you come up here with me for just a moment? Nat West is a retired vice president of Winter Haven. And some guys are handing some things out to you men, all right? He is the retired vice president of Winter Haven Hospital, but he also works as, let me get this straight, he is also the chairman of the mentoring and volunteers and the chairman of the early childhood development of Polk County Schools. Now, earlier this year, there was a study done by some independent folks who are not a part of the school system, but were studying the school system, more specifically our area here in eastern Polk County. And they found out some very interesting things about what was happening in eastern Polk County. But to boil it all down is this: in order for our schools to get the help that they need for the churches to volunteer and to get involved. So how do we get involved outside? We go to our schools. Now let me ask you something, Nat. Here's why I have you here this evening. I want you to tell us what we can do to help. Would you just explain to us today what we can do to help?
Okay, great. I left on the back behind this area back here on a table the actual plan itself. So if anyone would be interested, this is the Winter Haven plan for how we can help in terms of education in our schools. I personally did 47 interviews of teachers at 3 different elementary schools, and essentially I got some rather talk about foreigner in my own culture. I found out that there are over 1,900 homeless kids in Polk County. That would translate to about 1,000 homeless children in eastern Polk County. I found out also that one of the major concerns that teachers had was over the summer. This is just, I didn't ask for this. They freely gave to me. Their biggest concern was, would their kids get the proper food at home over the summer? So that's the kind of thing that kind of opened my eyes to, we really need to help and be mentors to these children and to assist the teachers by being volunteers. 2 different things. I happen to mentor at Denison Middle School to a young man. And my commitment is simply to see him 1 hour a week, although it's not even an hour. We just have lunch for about 35 minutes, and then he has to go back to class. But that's the mentoring thing that may appeal to some of you, particularly men. We'd love to have men. We love to have women as well. But they're estimating that 20 to 35 children in every school could use a mentor. So that's a challenge for all of us.
It sure is.
And I left some material on the back on who you might contact. Again, behind that wall there. Oh yes, I've got that flyer. That's a good one. This is basically men helping men. This is a flyer that may be of interest to you. I hope so. And then I have another one here. Margaret Ann Wheeler is in charge of the mentoring program and the volunteer program. Some people have told me, they're a little uncomfortable mentoring a child, but they'd be more comfortable volunteering. And I can tell you that the teachers would absolutely love to have you in there volunteering in some capacity. So either one of these would really be, ideal for us if folks felt that calling. And I'll be glad to share with you after the meeting, back by the table or anywhere else, whatever I know about these 2 initiatives. For the entire program for Winter Haven, actually I chair 2 things. I chair the Mentoring and Volunteering Task Force, and I also chair a task force called Early Childhood Education, which I'm very passionate about. That is, that particularly low-income kids, if we can get them started early enough to school, we can make a major difference on their entire life. So those are 2 of my primary areas of focus.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. Nat, What would happen if every man in this room picked up this flyer, filled it out, and became a mentor to a boy that didn't have a daddy, didn't have a male figure in his life? See, that's what we're talking about, getting outside and having some other opportunities. Let me tell you another opportunity that we have. Heath Woolman, come on up here, brother. Heath Woolman works with he's a chaplain in the Polk County Jail, but he is also the lead counselor at the Polk County Jail. And Heath, tell us, Heath is also one of our youth ministers over at First Baptist Frostproof. Heath is in charge of the faith-based initiatives that are there at the jail, and Heath could use some volunteers. So Heath, tell us, what is it that we could do? How can we help?
Okay. The sheriff's office has a couple of options that we desperately need people for. You've seen some of our pastors here. Guys, if you're here and you're a chaplain with the agency, stand up. The first step, and what these men have partnered with the sheriff's office, is we need vocational pastors, lay pastors, who are willing to invest in the agency members themselves. The reason why the sheriff can do a lot of the things that he does is because he blankets the agency with prayer and with people who are willing to invest in the staff. The chaplains that you see here, our pastors, we serve the deputies. We serve the administrative staff. We're in the cars riding. We're answering calls and helping assist with different things. We are there to be a ministry to the staff. And so the first thing we would say, if pastors, if you would be willing to partner with us to encourage those people who serve us on a daily basis. I don't know about you guys, but I can say for me, in the 2 years that I've done it, it has been one of the most rewarding ministries I've ever had. To be able to minister to and to witness with and to just stand alongside and serve those who serve us. But on the other side, on the detention side, we have a very unique opportunity to reach those who are detained. The sheriff was right, and I don't know who said it, but they don't get up and walk out of church in the jail. We have a captive audience, but we have a short-term audience. The difference between prison and county jail is county jail, they get out a lot quicker. The longest term in inmates in our county jail is up to 3 years, but usually the average time that they're there is 40 days. And we are trying to do anything that we can to provide resources for them, not necessarily while they're in the jail, as much as when they get back into the community. And that's where we need the churches. That's where we need our volunteers. Our faith-based dorms, we have a 4-phase program for our faith-based initiative. The 4 phases are, we want our inmates in the program to understand the love of God. If you don't understand that God loves you and what he did for you on the cross, you've missed the point. We want them to understand the forgiveness and the peace of God that comes through that forgiveness. We want them to understand how they can put on that relationship with Christ and wear it on a daily basis. We want them to understand how they can share their faith when they leave that jail and how they can be a witness and a testimony to the communities that they're going to go back in. And we need mentors and pastors and lay people to invest time with those men and women in those dorms. We have dorms set up where volunteer pastors, volunteer ministers, lay people from churches can come once a week for an hour, once every other week, once a month, and have a scheduled time to go and to just invest in those inmates who have chosen to be part of that faith-based program. We also need churches and primarily youth ministers or people that are focused in youth. I don't know if you've seen on the news, but there's been a lot of controversy about the juveniles that have transitioned to the Polk County Jail. As a youth pastor, I think it's the greatest thing in the world because they not only are in a much better environment, but they're in an environment where they're actually being treated and they're being cared for. We have a great partnership with Youth for Christ and with other churches and organizations, and we want to fill every evening those juveniles are in our jail. We want to fill them with faith-based ministry resources to have at their fingertips. We don't force it on them, but I guarantee you when somebody shows up, I walked in, I was telling them a minute ago, I walked in and Youth for Christ, they had a box of Cheerios and they had kids snorting Cheerios across the room in the dorm, in the jail. And they're going in and they're playing games with kids and they're giving them snacks and they're just having just some relaxed time with kids who are locked up and they're building relationships. Yeah. And when we've learned if we can build a relationship with them there, when they don't have a choice to go anywhere else, they yearn for that relationship on the outside. And that's where we need the churches. Maybe you don't want to go in the jail. There's a lot of people who are scared to death about that door slamming behind them. I understand that. When I do tours and people walk in there and their eyes, when they hear that door slam, it can be frightening. Well, we need people prepared on the outside who are willing to accept inmates, who are willing to accept these people who have made decisions that have at one point put them in jail. We need them to be there to encourage them when they come out. I think there's a stigma sometimes about somebody who's been in jail. A lot of times we have a preconceived idea of that person, and we're worried about what they might do, or maybe they may hurt us, or they may hurt our church, they may hurt the name of our church. They're our community.
Yeah.
And we are seeing change every single day. And we need churches to partner with us to come in and to mentor and to teach them, but to be there to accept them when they come out as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Heath. Thank you, Heath.